Thousands of South Koreans demand a rerun of local elections as they protest over ballot paper shortages that disrupted this week's post. Oil tanker owners fear a future market crash despite record profits from the Iran conflict, which disrupted the Strait of Hormuz and boosted shipping rates. Heavy investment in new vessels has raised concerns of oversupply and falling rates if trade routes normalize. We have some news coming in from West Asia. U.S. military claims to have downed 2 Iranian attack drones threatening the Strait of Hormuz shipping traffic in the latest clash between the warring forces as tensions escalate in West Asia. Now, in a post on X, U.S. Central Command has said that American forces remain postured and ready to continue defending against Iranian aggression. And this news coming in where the U.S. military has claimed to have downed the 2 Iranian attack drones that, according to them, threatened Strait of Hormuz shipping traffic in the latest clash between the warring forces as tensions escalate in West Asia. CENTCOM in a post has said that American forces remain postured and ready to continue defending against Iranian aggression. All right, for further people just joining in, this is news coming in where U.S. military have claimed to have downed 2 Iranian attack drones threatening the Strait of Hormuz shipping traffic in the latest clash between the warring forces as now the tensions escalate in West Asia. In a post on X, U.S. Central Command CENTCOM has said that American forces remain postured and now they're ready to continue defending against Iranian aggression. Now, 3 Lebanese soldiers, including a senior army officer, were killed in an Israeli airstrike in southern Lebanon. Fresh strike has once again heightened concerns about the durability of U.S. brokered ceasefire. According to Lebanese army, 2 officers and a soldier were killed in a strike on a military vehicle. It condemned the incident, saying that continued and repeated Israeli strikes were aimed at undermining efforts to reach a resolution. On the other hand, IDF claimed it had targeted a vehicle moving suspiciously in an active combat zone within an area it had earlier ordered to evacuate. It also reiterated that its operations are directed against Hezbollah and not Lebanese forces, and that it is reviewing the incident. Furthermore, Lebanon has said that 2 women were killed and around 22 others injured in an Israeli strike in southern Lebanon on Saturday. However, Israeli military claimed it had struck around 150 Hezbollah targets across southern Lebanon over the past 48 hours, saying that operations hit Hezbollah infrastructure and weapon sites. IDF further stated that it lost 2 soldiers who were fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. According to official Israeli figures, IDF has now lost 29 soldiers since the beginning of recent war in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Lebanon's health ministry said that around 3,500 people have been killed in conflict so far. American and Iranian officials have been negotiating a deal for some time now. Israel, which jointly attacked Iran with the U.S. on 28th of February, does not have a seat on the negotiating table. But a report from the New York Times now suggests that Israel has been secretly listening to every conversation. According to the New York Times report, Israel has intensified efforts to eavesdrop on senior U.S. officials, including Steve Witkoff, who is actively engaged in talks with Iran, Elbridge Colby, Pentagon's top policy official, and Michael P. Dimino, one of Colby's main deputies. The report also says that U.S. Defense Department has now increased the counterintelligence threat level posed by Israel to the highest level, from high to critical. According to the New York Times, the Defense Intelligence Agency report was drafted following incidents in which U.S. defense personnel in Israel detected that software to tap their communications had been secretly installed on their phones. The report outlines various efforts by Israel to spy on American military personnel and government officials. However, a White House official who spoke to the New York Times said that the report was false. The Defense Department declined to comment, while a spokesperson for the Israeli embassy denied any Israeli espionage targeting U.S. officials or entities. The New York Times report cites an assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, which details several incidents of espionage in recent years. It says that in 2021, Israeli intelligence was caught planting listening devices at DIA headquarters. And last year, Israel's Shin Bet tried to plant a listening device in a Secret Service vehicle. The report says that the use of personal smartphones by several American officials have made them easy targets of Israeli espionage. And all of this comes at a time when the U.S. is sharing huge amounts of tactical and operational information with Israel over the Iran war. Well, the New York Times report says the revelations could complicate war planning and future military cooperation between the two sides. The U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth invoked the immigration issue as he attended a ceremony marking 82 years since the D-Day landings at American Memorial in France. Hegseth paid tributes at the ceremony and was joined by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane, among other military personnel, dignitaries, and veterans. In a speech at the Normandy American Cemetery, Hegseth warned of modern threats, saying various European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies. He appeared to compare the D-Day landings to migrant boats and warned that the freedom won by Allied troops could prove temporary if leaders failed to defend it.
Sadly, today, different European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies. Beaches in Spain, in Italy, in Greece, and Bulgaria, boats and men arrive. When will European capitals do something about that invasion? Or is it too late? I pray not, and I believe not. The men who fought and died here restored freedom to Europe. That freedom must be maintained by this generation of leaders and warfighters.
Although Hegseth did not use the word immigration, his remarks echoed broader Trump administration criticism of Europe over migration, borders, and what U.S. officials have described as censorship of nationalist and far-right voices. In December, the Trump administration's national security strategy warned that Europe faced the prospect of civilizational erasure and could become unrecognizable within 20 years. On Saturday, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office also condemned US Vice President J.D. Vance for blaming immigration for the killing of Henry Nowak, an 18-year-old British student stabbed to death in Southampton, even though both Nowak and his killer were British. The ceremony in France honored war veterans and was dedicated to the invasion that helped change the course of World War II. Hegseth also paid tribute to the U.S. servicemen involved in the landings, stating that they carried the hopes and prayers of a free world. Now, D-Day commemorations mark the day when more than 150,000 Allied soldiers invaded France to drive out Hitler's forces, according to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. The Allies took approximately 10,250 casualties on D-Day, a number that includes killed, wounded, and missing servicemen. Now, Singapore has ordered social media giants to block posts accused of spreading xenophobic content against Indians. Authorities say the material threatens racial harmony and could incite tensions in the multi-ethnic city-state. Singapore has directed YouTube, Facebook, and X to restrict access to 14 online posts. The government says the content promoted xenophobic narratives targeting the Indian community. The orders were issued under the Online Criminal Harms Act. In that act, a law that allows authorities to act against harmful online content. Officials say the post claimed Singapore's multiracial model was only a facade. They allege that a growing Indian population posed a threat to the country. Some posts use selective images and derogatory language to reinforce negative stereotypes about Indians. Investigations found the content likely originated from a China-based platform before spreading across other online spaces. The Ministry of Home Affairs described the campaign as a malicious attempt to sow racial divisions. Singapore's government says foreign source efforts to exploit ethnic fault lines are completely unacceptable. Authorities have urged residents to reject xenophobia, stay vigilant online, and continue supporting the country's multiracial social fabric. South Korea is witnessing growing political unrest after ballot shortages disrupted local elections across the country. Now, thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of Seoul, demanding a fresh vote and questioning the credibility of the election process. Thousands of South Koreans staged overnight protests in Seoul, demanding a rerun of this week's long elections after ballot shortages prevented some voters from casting their ballots, and the demonstrations continued into the early hours of Sunday outside Seoul's SK Olympic Handball Stadium, where votes from the local elections were being counted.
Since people end up voting while checking the vote count results on their phones, there are serious problems in the process. And the news report says some people had to go home without voting because there weren't enough ballot papers. I thought this makes no sense in an election where every citizen's right to vote should be guaranteed.
During the extended voting time, the vote count broadcasts had already begun and the exit poll results were already out. Because voting took place after those exit poll results were released, I believe there was no fairness at all, so I think the election should be nullified nationwide.
Protesters waved national flags, carried placards reading election rerun, and chanted slogans calling for a fresh vote. Reports say nearly 10,000 people gathered at the venue, with hundreds remaining through the night. The controversy began after South Korea's National Election Commission admitted that ballot shortages affected around 50 polling stations nationwide, including more than 30 in Seoul. Voting was also temporarily suspended at several locations due to supply delays. Election officials say that only enough ballots were printed for about half of eligible voters, citing large number of unused ballots in previous elections. But many voters rejected the explanation, saying the shortages undermined their democratic rights. Public anger intensified after National Election Commission Chairman Roh Tae-kae resigned amid mounting criticism over the handling of the vote. The local elections were the first nationwide poll since President Lee Jae-myung took office following the removal of former President Yoon Suk-yeol. While Lee's Democratic Party won most races, it failed to capture the key Seoul mayoral seat. Political analysts say that the ballot shortage has raised serious questions about election management and accountability, with growing calls for a full investigation and a rerun of the affected vote. All right, moving on. We're talking about pandas. Now, a zoo in Taipei has received a pair of endangered red pandas from China, and it marks the first animal exchange between the two sides in more than a decade. The two red pandas, a 3-year-old male and a 2-year-old female, will spend a month in quarantine before gradually adjusting to their new surroundings. They will be unveiled to the public once the acclimatization process is complete. The pair have not yet been named. They have joined the zoo's existing red panda group as part of efforts to diversify the species gene pool. The exchange also carries a symbolic element. Taipei last received red pandas from China's Fujian province in 2014. In return, reports say that the city will send white-hatted gibbons to Shanghai as part of the latest arrangement. The move comes even as tensions between China and Taiwan remain high and official contacts between the two governments stay suspended. Despite the political divide, city-level exchanges have continued. Red pandas are native to parts of China, Nepal, Myanmar, and Laos. They're classified as endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The species remains under threat from habitat loss and declining populations, making conservation programs and international cooperation increasingly important. Now, fears of rising interest rates collided with worries about artificial intelligence spending on Wall Street on Friday, bringing an abrupt and painful end to weeks of record gains. The Nasdaq Composite marked its worst day in more than a year. The losses intensified after a robust U.S. jobs report raised new worries that the Federal Reserve may need to raise rates this year to fight rising inflation. Global markets are sending a clear signal. The dollar was up 1.2% last week. Now, that strength is hurting risk assets. Bitcoin crashed 17% to $60,959 in a sharp sell-off late in the week. Gold was down over 5% to $4,354 an ounce as investors favored the greenback. Oil, however, held firm, up 0.8% at $92.78 per barrel. The theme from last week was a strong dollar, weak gold, and crypto. The message from markets: risk is off. Now, with major assets covered, let's shift focus to the Asia-Pacific stock markets. Markets in the region ended the week mostly in the red. Japan's Nikkei bucked their trend and was the lone gainer, up 0.4%. The rest fell. India's Sensex dropped 0.7% to 74,243. The benchmark has struggled the most, down 12.9% for the year. Shanghai slipped 1%. Australia's ASX was the biggest loser, down 1.2%. Caution dominated regional trade. In the Americas, it was brutal Friday. Wall Street took a hard hit after record highs led by AI bets earlier this week. But on Friday, the tech-heavy Nasdaq crashed 4.7%, the worst fall of the week. The S&P 500 lost 2.6%. Brazil's Bovespa tumbled 2.7%. Canada's held up better, down just 1%. No market in Americas escaped the sell-off. Looking across the Atlantic, Europe and Africa split this week. France bucked this trend with the stock benchmark gaining 0.4%. The UK's FTSE barely moved down about 0.4%. Germany's DAX fell 1.4%. South Africa's benchmark was the week's biggest loser, crashing 2.9%. Emerging market jitters hit Johannesburg hard. Now, the FIFA World Cup creates several memories that last a lifetime. Central to the thrill of the competition is the theme of the underdog claiming a huge victory. Let's take a look at the greatest upsets in the World Cup history in no particular order. The ultimate David versus Goliath story happened in the last World Cup itself, and it actually featured eventual champions Argentina. Lionel Messi's side were in fact on a 36-match unbeaten streak coming into the tournament, and they were defeated by Saudi Arabia in their opening match of the 2022 World Cup. However, it turned out to be a wake-up call as Argentina then stormed through the tournament to claim the biggest prize in football. Now, back in 2002, France entered the tournament as both world and European champions, boasting the likes of Zinedine Zidane. But Senegal stunned the star-studded French side and claimed a 1-0 victory in Seoul, setting the tone for a thrilling tournament. The French team struggled and were knocked out in the group stages. Let's go back to 1990 now for another upset orchestrated by an African team. In the opening match of the tournament at the iconic San Siro in Milan, Cameroon stunned Diego Maradona's Argentina, who were the defending champions. The indomitable Lions beat Argentina 1-0 despite being reduced to 9 men by the end of the game. The victory put African football on the map, and Cameroon eventually reached the quarter-finals, while Argentina lost to Germany in the final. Now, back in 1950, England were favorites to win the entire tournament, but they fell to a defeat to a U.S. team which featured part-timers who were far from professional footballers. In fact, the American team had a mailman, a dishwasher, and here's a driver. While the England squad included superstars like Stanley Matthews and Tom Finney. But the result was a 1-0 victory to the U.S., and it remains a match that is spoken about even after 75 years. All right, with that, we caught a wrap to World Day for today. News and updates will follow on the other side. We leave you with some visual images that have been making a lot of presence from across the world. Thanks for joining.
Inside South Asia this week, tragedy unfolded in India's capital. At least 21 people lost their lives after a massive fire broke out at a hotel located in South Delhi. In another tragic tale, at least 22 Afghan refugees were killed when a truck carrying families returning from Pakistan overturned. And we bring you an exclusive chat with this year's Cannes winner, Nepalese filmmaker Avinash Vikram Shah, the director of Elephants in the Fog.
Our ties with India in entertainment, go far deeper than just business, They are rooted in, shared culture and storytelling tradition.
All this and much more on Inside South Asia.
Nikki? As Obsession and Backroom script box office history, we decode if Hollywood is undergoing a Gen Z takeover.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you!
Meet the man behind the historic Nepalese film Elephants in the Fog and celebrate the legacy of Marilyn. All this and much more with me, Rhythm Sharma, on WION Club at these times.
It's turned out to be the most successful World Cup from the standpoint of what's happening.
The FIFA World Cup is being co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico and kicks off on June 11th. For the first time in history, the tournament expands to 48 teams playing a record 104 matches.
Get all the updates from the 2026 FIFA World Cup only on WION.
On Wings this week, we cover how the monsoon has now officially begun in India, bringing a nice respite from the heat across the country. Also, we show how the 73rd Everest Day was celebrated in India and Nepal. And how Rome hosts an art gathering of decorative artists from around the world. Only on WION, World is One. In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION, World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shiban John. Now, let's start with the headlines. US military claims to have shot down 2 Iranian attack drones threatening the Strait of Hormuz shipping traffic in the latest clash between the warring forces as tensions escalate in West Asia. US media reports say Pentagon in recent weeks has raised counter-intelligence threat level from Israel to its highest designation. That's critical amid growing tensions between US and Israel over the wars in Iran and Lebanon. Israeli strikes killed 10 people in Gaza as the Israeli military says one of the dead was a quote-unquote Hamas terrorist cell commando. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visits major munition factory, orders the country's missile production capacity to be increased 2.5 times over the next 5 years. Thousands of South Koreans demand a rerun of local elections as they protest over ballot paper shortages that disrupted this week's post. Twelve people injured in the shooting at a community street festival in Ohio, suspect at large. Selected Indian firms, both private and public, have gained access to Anthropic's new Mythos AI model, expanding advanced AI capabilities in the country. The move is expected to support innovation, research and AI adoption while strengthening India's position in the global AI ecosystem. American and Iranian officials, they've been negotiating a deal for some time, and Israel, which jointly attacked Iran with the US on the 28th